Welcome back to the Female Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Danny. I'm a health and fitness coach of the last 10 years who helps women learn how to finally work with their bodies rather than against them, who helps people who actually want to improve their health and quality of life whilst achieving whatever health and fitness goals they may have. And in today's episode, I'm going to talk about intention setting. And I'm going to do that in the context of social occasions. So, social occasions can be sometimes quite difficult to manage when you're navigating a health and fitness journey because you're out of your usual routine. So, whatever goals you may have, whether your goals are to improve your relationship with food or whether you're progressing with performance goals, so you're training for a half marathon, or whether you're working towards building muscle tissue or losing body fat, it can be difficult when you're out of your usual routine and your food and your environment is not in your usual control. And you might also want to relax around things like nutrition a little bit more. And I would advocate for that. I'd recommend that. But it doesn't mean it's not difficult to manage in some circumstances. So the reason I wanted to talk about intention setting today is because it can really help us behave more consciously rather than passively during these occasions. And if we set our intentions beforehand, it can really help settle our minds and enable us to enjoy those occasions so much more, as opposed to us not really knowing how to act, not making a plan, and therefore feeling quite unsettled during these occasions. And as a result of us feeling unsettled and not knowing quite how to behave, how to manage it, our thoughts can be quite scrambled and messy. Sometimes we might have feelings of stress or anxiety, and that's not nice, and it doesn't enable us to enjoy these occasions. So when we're working to change our behavior, whether, like I said, you're working towards improving your relationship with food and body image, or you're working towards achieving performance goals that you've never hit before, that requires behavior change, and behavior change requires a conscious effort initially. It's not going to happen without thought or intention. We are not going to achieve our goals, whatever those goals may be, without conscious effort, without intention. And often social occasions are a time where people feel like they are more likely to quote unquote slip up with their process or their goals, whatever that might look like. Or they're an occasion where people end up behaving in a way that they don't want to behave. And this can be down to factors like I mentioned at the start, such as being out of routine and the challenges that come with that, being unprepared, being surrounded by lots of delicious, what we call hyperpalatable foods, or the mindset that we have around the occasion if, for example, we try to enforce a restrictive approach throughout the rest of the week, or if we have a bit of an all or nothing mindset, for example. And it's common when we've struggled with our relationship with food in the past for challenging thought processes to come up during social occasions, or for us to fall back into old behavior patterns that can sometimes be subconscious. It's not like we're choosing to fall back into those behavior patterns, but it can happen, such as overeating or restriction being two really common ones. So, in today's podcast, I wanted to talk about some questions that you can run through with yourself prior to a social occasion to set your intentions and better prepare yourself so that you're more likely to behave in a way that's actually supportive of your goals and supportive of your relationship with food, and to also enable you to actually drop into the moment during social occasions and be truly present rather than your thoughts being wound up in, oh no, what's going to happen to my body as a result of behaving in this way, or worrying about what food choices you should make, or worrying about what other people will think of your food choices. There are so many challenging thought processes that can come up around these occasions, and I want to help you combat them and truly enjoy social occasions as a positive part of your life without them interfering with your goals, because they absolutely don't have to. And they are so good for our health. Human connection is so important for us. And the stress reduction that can come with social occasions is huge, can have a really profound positive impact on our lives. And it's also good for us to just, in a lot of occasions, get out of our usual environment, see different people, see new places, taste different foods, allow ourselves to enjoy foods. This is all a part of a healthy lifestyle and can all be a part of achieving your goals. So I'm going to run through this sort of intention setting exercise, some questions that you could ask yourself. And I'm also going to give you some examples of answers to those questions so that you've got a little bit of food for thought there, rather than you feeling lost and not quite sure where to go with these questions and answers. And my hope is that this will help you when it comes to social occasions in the future, feel better prepared, better able to behave how you want to behave in line with your goals and values, and also able to enjoy these occasions as a part of your life, as part of a healthy life. So as you go through today's podcast, please feel free to write notes down, whether that be in your phone, pen and paper. You might want to write these questions down, but I will also provide you with a resource at the end, which has actually the questions written down on there. But you might want to write down some of the examples and some of anything relevant that you think I talk about that you might want to come back to in the future. So the first prompt or question that I would consider is, what benefits could this occasion provide me that are nothing to do with food? So here you might think about the opportunity to connect with others and strengthen relationships with your loved ones, or create new relationships, new connections, even with acquaintances. You never know what opportunities might come up as a result of you being in a room with different people. And especially if, your current friends are introducing you to new people. I have made, I would say, all of my closest friends, I have made those friendships in the last few years, and a lot of them have been as a result of me showing up to different places, new gyms, or different apartment buildings or coffee shops, or my current friends introducing me to new people that they're friends with, and therefore we're likely to get along because we're really good friends. So open your mind up to the opportunities that could be in front of you as a result of putting yourself in different rooms and showing up to social occasions. You never know what could happen. The world is really your oyster. But if you're not able to be present because your thoughts are consumed by food, or what impact the food in front of you might have on your body, and you've got work to do on your relationship with food, that is going to heavily take away from your ability to relax, to be yourself, to form these new connections. And so that should be a huge incentive for most people to work on their relationship with food and their body image, because of those potential connections that could be formed, the positive impacts that could have on your life, on your health, on the other person's life, their health, and on the trajectory of your life as a result of all of those things. Um, Another example of a positive impact that could come with social occasions is stress reduction, like I mentioned before, the opportunity to get dressed up, to get in a different environment, to have a different experience. Like, all of these things are really positive for our health and quality of life. The next prompt I would move on to, and this is a really important one, is to think about how you would like to feel during the occasion and then also following the occasion. So how do you want to feel before, during, and after the occasion? An example for myself is, if I'm showing up to a social occasion, I want to feel during the occasion present. I want to feel calm. I want to give off good energy. I want to be able to engage in meaningful conversations. And then after the occasion, a lot of the time I want to feel well rested. I want to feel like I've relaxed. I want to feel alert, ready to perform if I've got an important training session. I want to feel calm. I don't want to feel heightened and worried about what's going to happen to my body. I don't want to feel super sluggish and lethargic most of the time. There is some social occasions where I will actively decide I want to fully let my hair down during this occasion. And I'm going to come on to this in a second. There are some occasions where I'll be like, I want to fully let my hair down. I'm going to have more strength than usual, and therefore I will accept feeling sluggish and lethargic off the back of the social occasion because it's been one that's really important for me to be able to fully let my hair down, and having a few extra drinks is what feels like nourishment for me. And so I will take the hit in terms of the consequences. But the majority of the time, I want to feel pretty well rested and alert and still ready to perform mentally and physically off the back of a social occasion because I'm busy with work. I train hard and I like to perform well. I want to be recovering well and responding well to my training. All of those things really matter to me. And so that's how I want to feel. And I think it's really important to set these intentions so that you can therefore behave accordingly in a way that's going to result in that outcome most likely, unless something inevitable gets in your way, like an illness, for example. And then the following question ties into that of what is going to lead to me feeling that way. So when it comes to my behavior around food and alcohol and the occasion on the whole, what is going to lead to the outcome that I want in terms of how I want to feel? So, for example, you might say the behavior that's going to lead to that outcome is me taking my time with eating rather than wolfing it down. Because if you take your time with your food, you're less likely to overconsume, and therefore you're less likely to feel sluggish after the occasion. So that is one example. Putting your knife and fork down between each few mouthfuls might be a specific target that you set yourself because that can help with you taking your time with eating. And I think it is often very important to be specific with your intentions rather than vague so that you are more likely of actually following through with them and you know exactly what you're going to do as opposed to you just sort of winging it. You might also set the intention of challenging yourself to leave food on your plate if you get to the point of feeling satisfied. Again, knowing that that allows you to enjoy the food in front of you without consuming in excess so that you're less likely to feel sluggish and overly full or sick following the social occasion or during. And if you don't eat to the point of being overly full and you do feel satisfied in a really comfortable way, and you've been able to enjoy your food, that's probably going to leave you more likely to stay at the social occasion for longer because you're feeling better in yourself, to engage in conversations, to be present overall, as opposed to you feeling really uncomfortable in your body, and then that taken away from your experience. So there are things that I would have a think about. And then when it comes to alcohol, it might be just thinking about, okay, how do I want to feel again the next day? And where's my limit with that? Because everyone's limit is different. I could go and have a glass of wine with a meal, be absolutely fine the next day. If I have two glasses of wine, that's where I might start to feel sluggish. So I know my limits. It's about figuring out your limits and what works for you. And even then, like I said, there'll be other occasions where I'm like, nah, I'm fully letting my hair down today and I'm not worrying about, the number of drinks that I have or whatever that might be. So there are some examples. And you might also choose the kind of meal that you're going to have ahead of time based on how you're feeling. Potentially, you might have a little scan of the menu, and that might tie into how you want to behave during the occasion in order to feel the way you want to feel afterwards. So you might set your intentions with that, or rather than being specific with your food choice, you might just say, I'm going to choose something that feels like nourishment for me in the moment, something that I believe is going to leave me feeling satisfied, but also X, Y, and Z afterwards, in line with the intentions you've set for how you want to feel. So it could be that sort of thing. And it could also be in terms of your behaviours around food and alcohol. It could be little things like reminding yourself of your values and the goals that you're working towards, and then reminding yourself what behaviors around food are relevant for your individual goals and values because they will be different for everyone. For someone that is battling restriction, tackling excessive restriction, for them, it might be important to challenge themselves to have something a bit more out of their comfort zone when they go to a meal out, for example. Whereas for someone else, say they are trying to lose body fat to support their health and they have a good relationship with food and body image, for them it might be more important to think about managing portion sizes and having something that isn't overly energy dense. So what's right for one person is not always going to be right for the next person, and it's really important to consider that, which is why I suggest checking in with your goals and values before setting these intentions and making sure that the intentions you're setting are right for you as an individual at this moment in time, rather than you comparing yourself to other people or thinking that there's a right and wrong, because there really isn't. And the next question I would move on to, and this is especially important for those of you who may have struggled with overeating in the past, who may be struggling with overeating now, or may have struggled with your relationship with food on the whole. So, how can I make sure I don't feel restricted in the run up to the occasion? This could be making sure that you're still eating regularly throughout the day, making sure that you're not excluding particular foods or food groups just because you know you're eating out in the evening. And the reason this can help support you in reducing your likelihood of overeating is if you go into a meal really hungry, food focus is going to be higher, obviously, hunger is going to be higher, and you're therefore more likely to overconsume during the meal than if you had eaten normally throughout the day and you entered the meal feeling a little bit more satisfied and able to make more conscious and intentional decisions rather than being more mindless around food. So have a think about making sure that you are eating regularly throughout the day and you're not restricting just because you know you have a meal out or a night out coming up. And I know it can seem a little bit counterproductive sometimes, and it can be scary to eat normally throughout the rest of the day when you know that you've got a meal out coming in the evening and you're going to maybe be consuming more calories than usual. But you have to remind yourself again of what's important for you and of the fact that if you are someone who struggled with overeating before, you're actually increasing your likelihood of overeating if you restrict yourself in the run up to a social occasion, because then you're more likely to feel much more out of control at the social occasion, unable to manage your portion sizes, for example. And then also after the social occasion, you may also be more prone to raiding the kitchen cupboards because that hunger has been so high going into the social occasion. So it's not even just about the likelihood of overeating being higher during the occasion itself, but also after that, if you enforce excessive restriction in the run up to it, or if you have this sort of all or nothing mindset, because that can lead to you viewing a social occasion as your one opportunity to eat certain foods and to eat large quantities. And therefore, that mindset can lead to it being really difficult to control yourself around food. So, we want to prevent this excessive restriction in the run up to these occasions. And the next and final prompt I would work through, and this I would do more close to, you could even do this in the moment of a social occasion. And I talk to clients a lot about this, is asking what feels like nourishment for you right now. So this relates to what I was saying about alcohol, and sometimes there being occasions where I go and I'm like, I'm fully letting my hair down here. There's no, I don't want to think too much about worrying how many drinks I'm having or whatever that might be. So there'll be some occasions where nourishment is letting your hair down fully, maybe allowing yourself to have more alcohol than usual or having something purely for the taste from a food perspective rather than worrying about the nutrient density of the meal. And this also applies for different people. So there might be, depending on you and your goals, like I mentioned before, if you're someone who's working on your relationship with food, it could be more beneficial from a health perspective for you to push yourself out of your comfort zone with what you're ordering and focus more on your genuine wants and desires rather than worrying about the nutrient density of a meal. And then there may be other people who would benefit more from paying a little bit more attention to what the nutrient density of a meal is like and making a decision that factors that into account a little bit more heavily. And that is why I ask you to consider what feels like nourishment for you as an individual in that moment, because there will be different decisions that are right for different people. And even for the same person, like I said, there are occasions where nourishment for me is fully relaxing and just ordering for taste and not worrying about the quantity of alcohol. And there'll be other occasions where, say, I've got an important run the next day, where nourishment means I actually need to think about the food sources that sit well with me. I need to think about the nutrient density and the macronutrient makeup of a meal in order to perform well the next day. So it's really important to check in with yourself in that moment rather than applying kind of blanket rules and statements. And there will be, like I said, other occasions where your appetite isn't as high and you've got an important session the next day. So nourishment feels like a slightly lighter meal and less alcohol, or it might not even be a lighter meal. If I had, say, a half marathon the next day, I'd have to have something very carbohydrate dense to support how I want to feel the next day. So it's all about considering your individual needs. But I really hope this podcast has given you some food for thought around how you can make social occasions a more positive part of your life that are supportive of your goals and values, and how you can set your intentions beforehand to increase your likelihood of behaving in a way that is supportive for you whilst enjoying these occasions. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the description to a document which has all of the questions I've spoken through on today's podcast in it, along with some examples so that you can work through them the next time you go to a social occasion. And what I would love for you to do is drop me a message when you try this and let me know how it goes. I'd really appreciate that feedback, and I really hope that it does help. So let me know how you get on. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for your time as always. Have a lovely rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you next week.